fam? I hope everybody's having an outstanding Sunday. And, you guys are keeping track of what's going on out there. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's a nice day out here in New York for once. It was John Blaze over here for like a whole 2-3 weeks. And it just hadn't been that hot in a while. So it was nice to get some summer heat here. But we'll see what happens with that. Because they playing games anyway, right? So all that said and done, you know, I hope everybody is kind of seeing what's going on from afar. We talked about this years ago, and time is here. 2025 is turning out to be one of the most important years in financial times because this is literally when the pivot is happening. And people really, typically typical apathetic response. They're not aware, they're not involved. And sadly, people are not trying to be aware and they're not trying to be involved. So all of that stuff compounds, because this is how consent is manufactured. People don't know, don't grasp the severity of the choices they're making. They're just gonna opt for convenience, and that's the trap, because they set things up in such a way that the only options you ultimately are left with are the options that don't benefit you. This is literally politics, right? And at the end of the day, oh crap, I forgot my water. At the end of the day, people unfortunately succumb, right, to the incessant ridiculousness of of that side of the world, because they want to believe in it. And I get it. Blah blah blah, all the stuff that people are taught. I get it. I get it. I remember one time I was going to a Target somewhere, and it was like a suburban type of area of New York. And these are people that probably, just because of the area they're in, probably grew up in or whatever, they just don't have a clue that there is no politics, right? It's just a scam to get people to be complacent about all the crazy shit that those that want to get away with can get away with. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Because if you or I were to commit any of the acts that these people commit, we'd be in jail in a hot fucking second. There'd be no conversation. There'd be no debate. None of that. So what people fail to realize is that this is a protected class of people. They're not regular like you and me. They decide what happens to you, not me, because I got to put myself in that situation. But I'm gonna say you because most people just are unaware, right? I don't follow none of their protocols, none of their rules, none of their mandates, none of their nonsense, and that's why I'm able to skate on by and just not be impacted by anything that they do or say. But a lot of people, they bank on that shit. What are my masters saying, right? That's what it ultimately boils down to. Um, and there's nothing beneficial about that, unfortunately. At the end of the day, everybody wants to be left alone, and this is where people get caught up in get fall into the trap of consenting to things that they would never ever, if they understood that that's what was going on. And this is exactly why today we're going to talk about in specific detail stuff I've been talking about for at least 2-3 years now, and that's what the real crypto market is going to be. Because everybody's been under this illusion that they're going to be lifted out of the ashes by their masters. I don't know why. because that's completely the opposite of any master's goal. The master's goal is to remain master over you. It's not to help you not be a slave. So I don't grasp this thought process where people think, anybody's going to do anything for them. Ain't nobody doing nothing for you. Nothing's changed but the date and the fools you see on TV. And they're really playing the same role. So the only thing that's changed is your perception. And a lot of people are definitely succumbing to that psychological operation. Right? That's psychological warfare. Gaslighting is psychological warfare, and a lot of people definitely fall to it. Now, how do you know that something doesn't make sense or it's a psychological operation and this and that? Well, think about it. When you got to ask yourself, what in the hell is this person thinking of doing because it doesn't make any sense? Odds are that's what that is. Because there is no other reason for things that don't make sense to happen, right? And this is kind of, again, when we go back to just the base of everything, right? The way things function, the way things move, the way things develop over time, all of these things are a function of how things are set up and how we're essentially taught to let them be, right? Because there is no upside for us to living how we're living, yet we continue to live this way. I mean, when a natural disaster occurs or whatever, because that's what they're called, but they're not really natural. And maybe we can get into this in the future. Or you can just go watch My Lunch Break. That's a pretty good channel on Rumble. They give you a very good, quick 20-minute run, 20 to 40-minute rundown, depending on the topic of the old world. And it's obvious, you either want to see it or you don't. So, because these are all things that I've seen since I was a little kid. Nobody had to teach me the obviousness of, yeah, these things don't add up because these buildings look a certain way and these other buildings look a certain way because they're definitely not built the same. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But, like many things in this world, you have to be interested in being aware. Otherwise, there's literally no point. There's no reason. And this is why, over time, people are made to be apathetic, which means to not care about what situation they're in or anything. And when you look outside, that's clearly where people are at. Definitely. Because in general, the average person is not concerned with their welfare. They're not concerned with what these people at the top are doing to them and how it's going to impact their future, not realizing that's infinitely more important than anything else going on in their lives, even though it doesn't directly impact them at that point in time. I mean, this is the best scam ever because people consent to getting fucked left and right unknowingly. And it's all a ruse, right? Because when you look outside, what do you see? You see degradation, you see devolution, devolution, whatever. You don't see evolution, you don't see progress, you see regress. So it's all of these things that, over time, people are taught to ignore, not to question them, to blame the system as it is, and to never desire to change it. I probably never shared this, but I work pretty close to top levels of quote unquote federal government, right? So the reason I bring that up is because there is a lot of information that people try to process. And, when you really look at how things are done and executed, at the end of the day, how are you benefiting? 9 out of 10 times, the individual is not benefiting in any which way, period. But what happens? You're fed a lot of lies, you're fed a lot of misinformation, you are shown a lot of TV shows where these entities exist and operate, and they claim to want to give you, insight as to how things function. And all of it is really BS, because nothing functions like it does on TV. Nothing, nothing. That's not reality. That's literally just TV. So, the complexities of life and human interaction, right? And tradition and protocol and understanding the other person's aim and all of these different things, they play a role into what we end up seeing as information. And this is why it's so critical that you as an individual have an idea, right? You don't have to be a full-fledged expert. No, I don't think anybody can be. I'm not, right? There's so many things going on and so many things changing that you have to be boots on ground, receiving information, 24/7. And that's hard to do because unless you're involved, which is one of the main reasons why I am, you can't know what's going on. The main reason I work where I work is because I want to know what the fuck these assholes are going to think of doing. Give a fuck about anything else. Because at the end of the day, I'm well aware that that's why I need to make X thousands of dollars every year just to meet my expenses. I understand that. I understand that every year I better be making more money or I'm going to be seeing myself in an ugly way, because prices always go up. The cost of living always goes up. What does not go up is your salary, unless you put in some effort to make that bad boy go up. Things to understand, because that is reality. We live in a world where you can be taken from and not say anything. Very critical. Things can be taken from you and you can't say anything. This is what civil asset forfeiture allows, FYI. And then on top of that, you don't just have to worry about the quote unquote law taking your goods and services, but criminals are allowed to do it nowadays too. Oh yeah. You see the shit on the news. I don't gotta tell you. I mean, when you walk into a store in certain areas of this country, the United States, you gotta ask for somebody to come and give you the item, because you can no longer take it yourself. Because what's happened is this culture of, well, I don't even know how to say it in English. Uh, this criminal culture has been allowed to expand in the U.S., right, in ways that is obvious that that was the goal, and I don't think people really respect that enough. So, the next level is 1980s, and after that, 1970s. And for those that don't know, you're going to find out. Because when homeless people just start harassing you just because you ain't got it or don't want to give it to them, that's something that shouldn't happen, but that's where we're at. At this point in time, that's the next level. Is for homeless people, to just start blasting on regular folk, because they're not just finding shit out there no more. There is nothing to be found. And, that's the way it is. You got to make it happen. In the United States, there is just not farms of food laying around like most other places of the world. And that is not respected enough. This is why so many people here in the United States work but are homeless. I mean, that's a common thing in New York. Common. not uncommon. That has become common. When that started happening, I want to say around 2014, 2015 is when it exploded. So none of these things that we're seeing now are new in any way. They've been developed and curated over time so that all the options that you as an individual have are the worst. Literally, the worst. That's all by design, and I guess people are okay with it. I don't know. But if you're not aware, that's uh, that's how it goes, right? Um, that's how the cookie crumbles, as they say. Um, so you got to really be cognizant of the things you're trying to do and what are the not just the immediate effects, but the second and third order impacts of what you're trying to do, what you're doing. Right? A lot of people just look at things from one perspective, but you need to have a multiple perspective point of view on things. Because if you knew everything, you would never make bad choices, right? But that's not the case. So these are things that you have to consider, especially moving forward, because we really don't know what they're going to do to the economic system. We just know what the end goal is, but it's all about how they intend to get there. Because you know, unfortunately for us, the majority are just not in tune with the scam, right? They're not, and that's the biggest drawback for us as a society, because everybody typically makes the wrong choice. Because, as I explained, they're only given wrong choices and they don't know how to say, I don't like any of these, get this the crap out of here. Because that's politics. Politics is about giving you bad choices on repeat so that you put yourself in a scenario whereby the idea is that you voted for that scenario that you're currently living. But the reality is that nobody votes for degradation. Nobody votes for worse. It just is given to people, and people just let it happen, even though it's happening with their money. Period. Right? And this is what's really going on. This is what is the reality of 2025. People are still acting like they understand, and yet their actions do not match that claim. I mean, crypto is literally just that nowadays. For a long time, it was a respectable thing, and now it's just a straight up joke. Period. And nothing is going to change that at this point, because everybody believes that this is where you come to get rich quick now. So everybody's going to accept whatever's thrown in front of them. And that's it. Party over. Nothing anybody can do to change that. So if you don't actually know markets, you just ignored my multi-hour streams for the past 5 years. You basically did nothing over the past 5 years. I'm never going to forget this one time in the first Vegas thing. Somebody asked me why I don't short my videos to 30 minutes or whatever the fuck number the dude said. And I was like, how the fuck are people going to actually understand what the problem is? If it was that easy, I wouldn't even exist in the first fucking place. Right? Who would give a fuck about the goddamn whales? Nobody would give a shit. But it was all for naught at the end of the day, because people really just want to be spoon-fed shit. And unfortunately for them, that's not the key to success. That's not the path to success. That's just the path to staying where the fuck you at. So, needless to say, a lot of people are going to eventually figure that out, that they've done nothing in 5 years, because that's what it is for most people. It's just a matter of them realizing that they've just been wasting time, not making any progress, whether they've been in crypto or otherwise, right? And that's the key. The key is realizing when you're not moving forward. It took me years to realize I wasn't doing shit, thinking I was, because I was making decisions but not going anywhere, right? And that's it right there. At the end of the day, all we have is the end result of our choices. And for a long time, I didn't really grasp that. I didn't have anybody to tell me, hey, dumbass, this, that, and the third. And it's important that you grasp that, because nobody is going to look out and do you the favor. You got to realize that you have to help yourself. Um, and, there's going to be people along the way that try to help you, right? Like myself and others. And you have to be cognizant enough to understand that that is what's happening. Because at the end of the day, you're operating in a way where you are just being hopeful and you're not moving with intent. And what that leads to is that it leads to decisions that you didn't actually want to make, but you end up making them anyway. But at the end of it all, you wanted something entirely different out of whatever, life, etc. Right? Like everybody wants something different than what they end up getting 9 out of 10 times. Everybody ends up settling most of the time. Relationships, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. At work, people settle for having a crummy job that they don't even like because of money or whatever. There's a lot of people in finance that don't give a rat's ass about it. They just do it because of the money. That's it. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but understand that that's what you're doing, and work towards a goal of achieving, whatever it is you want, whatever peace of mind it is you seek. But that's not typical. That's not typical at all. And again, I harp on crypto. It's a great microcosm of understanding human psychology and how people will always, always, always choose what's not in their best interest. It's an adult marshmallow test. That's what crypto is. Period. And it took me a while to understand that, but I eventually did. But to explain that to somebody that has no interest in understanding, because they just want what they want, right? It's like trying to teach a little kid something that at some point, they might get, but right now it ain't it. And that is ultimately crypto in a nutshell. Big old marshmallow test where if you don't have the ability to understand the math behind the world, then it doesn't matter what you own. You will get left behind if you don't own the right thing. Pretty simple. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed actually, but there is probably not going to be a bull run. Like I told you guys, 2-3 years ago, whenever. Let's see here. Not at this point anyway. Bitcoin's supposed to be at 200,000 or some shit like that. It ain't supposed to be at 115. And nobody's going to talk about that. Everybody's going to act like that model didn't exist. Everybody's going to act like what's happening isn't happening. And this is my point. Bitcoin can go to 200,000, next year. It still doesn't mean anything because it's over. And people are not going to accept that. They're going to keep riding that fake wave that master told them to ride. Because that's all it is. That's all it is. Don't think that for a split second, whatever you think of crypto is actually crypto, because it's not. Governments have no interest in you having financial sovereignty. That's exactly why money exists. That's exactly why we don't use precious metals anymore. These are things that are very critically important to understand while you're out here thinking that the SEC is going to do you some favors, Trump going to do you some favors, all this other crazy shit they got people thinking is going to happen. It's not going to happen. No, they're going to do something. It's not going to be for you. And that's the key of this stream. You guys get on TradingView and look at all this shit. And funny thing is, none of that shit here, like what you think of as crypto, is gonna be crypto. It's not gonna be accepted. It's not gonna be used in the system. It's not. You're not getting saved, right? That's the long story short. Oops. Let's see. No. This is what is gonna pop up around you, and is gonna be the only thing that's gonna be accepted. Let's view, and you could already see trusted by institutions, yada yada. So let's go back to that, because again, it's not me, right? I don't make these decisions. I'm telling you what's happening, what's gonna happen, because why do you think they're gonna hook you up? I mean, you gotta be a real dumbass to believe that. And millions of billions of people are real dumbasses because they do want to believe that. But we're talking about Visa. We're talking about Bloomberg. We're talking about Forbes. We're talking about Coinbase. We're talking about entities that their whole goal is to keep you financially repressed, suppressed. Moody's, right? What when you think about Moody's, what do you even think of besides The Big Short, right? Not much, and there's a good reason for that. All those things that are not in your face, that are not obvious, that are not seemingly controlling you, that's exactly what is controlling you, precisely. And at the end of the day, your inability to see the obvious is what will do you in. And these people hide nothing. They tell you straight up. They use this word way more than they use crypto or digital assets, don't they? Right? And people don't want to hone in on that. They want to sit there and pretend payday is coming. And it is. It's just not for you. That's just how it works. Because nobody actually wants a payday. Everybody wants to put in no effort and just be granted some magical gift. I don't know. But that's what people really want. And guess what? That's what people are gonna get. Not what they deserve. They're gonna get what they deserve. Not what they want, but what they deserve. Because inaction begets similar results. Now, all you're hearing about lately, stablecoin this, stablecoin that, yada yada yada. Nothing about cryptocurrency. So for the people that believe the narratives, right? Why? Why do you believe them? I mean, look at the private credit. Just look at private credit alone. Can I remove these? No, I don't think I can. Let's see what stablecoins look like. Oh my god, this shit is too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy. Unfortunately for me. All right, so I guess it should be obvious what this stream is all about now. Now that the big cat is out of the bag. I think this shit is funny. Y'all motherfuckers are slow. What does P dot have to do with anything? I would love an answer to that first. I don't understand what this has to do with anything. Everybody's clearly unaware of what I'm still saying, even though I say it in English. Things that are not centrally issued are not going to benefit. Period. So your shit coins are going to stay shit coins unless somebody decides to buy them. But they're not going to get pumped by the system, which is what everybody's expecting. That is what all of these stable coins is about. We're talking about $256 billion worth of stable coins in your face and nothing elsewhere. Right? All of the other asset classes, they're not even in the same league. Right? They're minuscule. They're 20x smaller or more than just the stablecoin bucket. You guys need to seriously start thinking about what I'm saying and stop fucking around. Because your ass is going to pay the price. Your family's going to pay the price. Your kids going to pay the price. Everybody and their mama going to pay the price for infinity. Because it's simply about the unit of exchange. It's not about anything else. And everything else is a derivative of currency. You got to understand that. Because why does it exist? You guys have to understand, and this broke my heart when I realized it because I dedicated my life to financial markets, but financial markets are a function of people's general ineptitude. The more complex a financial market system is, the stupider the population by default, because that means that there's inability to create systems and processes to trick people out of their hard-earned money. And what do we see in our financial system? That's exactly what we see. And that's just what's true. It's not my opinion. Look at the average individual. They have poor credit score, no savings, on and on and on it goes. And that's because of the level of education people just receive, just from a general standpoint. I mean, people don't even know what an asset or a liability is in general. But yet, their literal net worth is defined by those two terms. Everybody, every single person in this world. So if you have a negative net worth, that's because you don't have a clue. Right? That's exactly what that means. All right, let's check the chat, see what you guys talking about. Let me scroll up a little bit here. Again, what's up to everybody in the chat? This is what the stream is about, right here. You know, what is the implication of all of these dollars? What do you guys think the implication of all of these dollars coming out of nowhere is going to be in the system? You know, yeah, there's going to be some asset classes that benefit, but do you own them? Odds are you don't. You know, where do you think you should go? What do you think you should be doing? All right, what do you think makes sense? Does anything make sense? I mean, and right now, looking from a high level on down, nothing makes sense because everything is splitting, it's breaking apart. And that is something that's not easy for people to see. Because unless you know the plumbing, everything is just fine. So let's see. You're going to YOLO in the options this upcoming week. You want me to give you a play, but you just told me what you're going to do. Why do you need me to give you a play? You know, you first of all, you got to figure out your time frame, right? What time frame are you comfortable trading in? Because if you're not comfortable holding for multiple sessions, then you probably want to focus on short-term options, right? If you want to do something that's more long-term, then right, you don't want to do short-term. So it just really depends what your perspective is time wise. Typically on average, downward moves are quicker than upward moves. So you don't have to play unless you suspect that we're entering a bear market, which I don't really think that's the case. Unless you suspect that that's going to be the case, a long drawn out bear market, right? You don't really want to be in long term puts. You want to be in some long term, and I'm talking about the indexes now, just the regular stock market, just the averages. You don't want to be in long term puts there because, first of all, anything more than 30 days on a put on an index is dangerous because those things get sold by institutions left and right. And unless you're willing to tolerate the pain, really, in the meantime, while you wait for the position to play out, because sometimes tops, they take a while. They take a while to play out. Um, right. This was 2025 top. Took from December to January, I think, or February. Yeah, 2 months for it to play out. So if this is really another topping moment in the market, which it could be, but according to volatility, not yet, because volatility itself has been very, very subdued. Right now, the thing to understand is that volatility stacks, and what that means is it trends. So if for the moment, this is a daily chart of the VIX, and as you guys know or might not remember, I track these little levels here to essentially kind of give us some type of warning on when the VIX might elevate. Because if you guys can see, as long as it's above 13, which you guys see, I even have a little signal here, another one here, another one there, because the trend is up. But as long as the signal, or I'm sorry, not the signal, as long as the level of the VIX is above 13, which I think is this line here. Let's see. It might be higher. It might be 14. Oh no. It's 1330. Yep, that's that number. As long as the market or the volatility reading is above 13.3, we're in a relatively high volatility environment. Not in a low volatility environment. We're more in a normal volatility environment. Excuse me. Normal volatility. So what that means is the market can easily just float along, float along, float along. And if you look at the backdrop to my screen, what you end up seeing is a lot of red. Now, a lot of red in the VIX means a lot of green in asset classes worldwide, because that means the volatility, or there is no fear in the market. Complacency reigns supreme when you see red. Now, these are 89-minute bars, right? So we're talking about days of time at a time. But complacency kills, right? And this is what you started to see here, because the market was really going in, right? This is 8 days per candle, and this is Bitcoin, but Bitcoin been stalling out for a long time. All right, it's been stalling out for a month, so this is a bad thing to look at. Hold on. Let me go to my little list here. If you look at stocks, they were floating the whole time. They only just now are seeing some pain over the past couple days. So then the question becomes, why? Why now? What's changed that the market really took a dive? That's question number one. Do you really foresee long-term pain? And if the answer is yes, then you know what side you have to look on. Because if the market's going to take that route, right, it's already broken volatility levels on an intraday basis, right? And I mean like the long-term intraday levels. Like 987 minutes is basically a whole day, right? So it broke that level, volatility to the downside. Is broken every minute interval that you can think of. Every time interval below this 987 has been broken. So we don't even got to look at the charts below. Now the question is, are we only going to come back for a pullback? 21,700, 22,200. Those are the immediate levels that stand out to me for right now. Um, that's the question. What is the market gonna do? Really, that's always the question. And getting that answer is not always easy. But if you understand that you need to look at things opposite, that is not where it's gonna go, but where it's been, and can it keep going? Once you start looking at things from that perspective, then your ability to assess the market changes a little bit because you're looking at things from a risk-based perspective, right? So, for example, we know the market is in new highs territory. We know that to be a fact. Another thing we do know is that inflation is running up, right? We know that to be a fact. Another thing we know, gold's been on a tear for years. It's never stopped. Never. And we're looking at, hold on, let me go on the daily chart at least. Right? That thing been ripping. This has been outperforming damn near every asset class. Right? This is gold we're talking about here. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to figure out what you actually want to do, what your time frame is, and why you think that's the move to make. Right? Whatever I say don't matter because it ain't my money, it ain't my play. You got to figure out what works best for you and your risk assessment because you don't look at things how I do. So I can't even give you a play. All I can tell you is what I think I see. And I mean, clearly gold looks like it's going to keep going up. So that's neither here nor there. However, let's look at the dollar because that's the canary in the gold mine that nobody really pays attention to. Because by the time that they do, as always, it's too late. Now, let me get rid of all of this because we're just going to look at straight price action. Because this is the most important asset class right here and the financial markets because everything revolves around this here US dollar. Everything. All these trade war headlines and all that crap. It's about that. All of that. So, when you scale back and you look at this chart from a very long term perspective. Oh, sorry. I was trying to go out a little bit further in time. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Right? It looks like we could be at another long-term major inflection point in the dollar. Meaning somebody's going to come in here and start buying them. Meaning somebody's got to sell assets if they don't already own some other currency or something in that scenario, right? Anytime a buy happens in the market, something is being sold. It's either currency or another asset class. Simple. That's at a very high level how markets work. So I'm looking at these things, right? You got all this stablecoin talk. You got people acting like stablecoin is going to do something for them. I really don't know. I don't know where this logic is coming from. I mean, the name itself kind of lets you know how that works. So, long story short, we're about to see the world flooded with digital dollars in a way that is going to make the inflation we've already seen seem like nothing. This is what is on tap for us in the West. And depending on where you live, you're already experiencing it to a certain extent because prices only go up, they don't go down. I mean, look at what they did with eggs. Right? They made them go sky high. And now they're still sky high. They're just not as sky high, but they're up there. There is nothing beneficial about paying 4x for what you used to pay 1x for. So there you go. That's how that works. So, what can you do to protect yourself from this psychoticness, from this impending doom? It's gonna be like your pocket is about to get flooded with shitty money. That's what's about to happen. And yeah, a lot of people are, living, they work and are already homeless. They don't even need to be a paycheck away. And I think that people really don't respect that enough. Maybe they don't even know, right? Maybe they don't even know. Let's see. Do I think that the credit debt cycle where they print massive amounts of M2 circulation won't pump crypto? No, because why have they pumped crypto? And then again, you gotta look at what's been pumped. You're gonna sit here and tell me, shit coins are really like Pepe and all the other famous ones, Shiba Inu or whatever. Like, you guys gotta understand, man. There's a reason those stories make the rounds. There's a very good reason those stories make the rounds, because they entice people to believe that they could be next. They could be that next 500 to $1 billion individual. And no, you will never be that person. It's not, no, that's just a headline. It's not for you. And then if you do happen to be lucky enough to hit a lick, do you actually know what to do? Or are you just going to pretend you don't need to take them 100,000,000, 100,000, whatever the number is, out, whatever. I don't know. Point is, the reality is that most people don't know what to do with money when they come into it. And that's why so many people suffer from financial drawbacks, right? In many ways, we're all financial illiterate in one aspect or another, right? And we have to learn to continuously progress in our lives to ensure that we don't stay there and that we actually do move forward, have savings, have investments, have real estate if you want to, whatever it is you want to do, right? It's completely doable. But if you're not educating yourself to make it happen, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's not. So the reason I say all of this money isn't really coming into what you consider crypto is because, as I'm showing you right here in your face, this is what crypto is. It's not what you think, because you don't make any decisions at the end of the day. You let other people make decisions for you. And that's no knock on you, specifically the viewer that's asking this question. I'm just speaking in general. The average individual does not make any decisions, period, because they don't want to. And that's how society is set up. So when they literally line everything up like this, where people think these authoritative figures, administrative figures, are going to do anything to, help them, you got to realize that's just a setup. When has that ever happened? Like, that's the question you got to ask yourself. Stop trying to be technical here. There's nothing technical about the scenario any longer because now the government is involved. And it took me 3 years to figure that out from, I'm lying, 5. Whenever 2008 happened, 2009 came, everybody was expecting the market to continue going, as we all know by now. And as we all know how the story goes, that's not what happened. The question is, why? Or should I say the answer is why? Why didn't that happen? It took me 5 years to figure it out. Because that is the most important answer to the questions that we all have in this financial game. America is supposed to be a place where anybody can go on any corner and sell some shit and not have issues and all this capitalist fucking lie bullshit, which doesn't happen here. Doesn't happen anywhere in America. You go fuck where you're at. Odds are somebody got a reason to complain or get you fucked or some shit. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. But it ain't nothing you guys aren't familiar with if you've been watching me for a while. But yeah, anyways, I think that it's important for people to understand that. Yeah, I think I talked about this a while ago too. I don't know if you guys remember back when Janet Yellen was the Treasury Secretary and she was admitting to messing up. And I made a big deal about that because these people never make mistakes in their mind. Never. They're perfect. Right? This is why they got all the MIT accolades, all the Ivy League accolades. That's what that represents. They're all Jewish. They all have the same background. They all make the same mistakes. They're all never held responsible for their inactions and dereliction of duty. Right? These people run the world. They get to fuck you and laugh about it. And you're okay with it. And this is why you have to understand that the question you asked only mattered up until, a few weeks ago when it became pretty apparent that they're about to go ham on everybody's pocket. So if you don't know anything about financial markets and extracting money out of it and stuff like that, I'm telling you what, you might want to start learning post haste because I've been talking about that for a while. And there is nothing positive about what's about to go down. Digital dollars are gonna. Oh shit! Hold on, because I know y'all really think I'm fucking around. Let's see, Walmart digital price tags. I'm telling y'all keep thinking I'm fucking around. I've been talking about the same shit since day one. I'm one of the few people on YouTube that's never changed anything that they're talking about or their narrative or whatever. One of the few people. Does it matter? Eh, not sure. Maybe I'm slow. Maybe I'm not. But let's see if we can find some videos on how this is about to go down. Oh yeah, Walmart, Kroger, Whole Foods, a whole lot of places are setting up to fuck you in major ways. I mean, this is 2024. This is last year. We're already a year and 2 months away from that point in time. So how much closer do you think we are now than we were then? Oh, you best damn believe it was way closer. Right? We gotta be. Now let's see what we come up with for the past week. Let's see. Hope I don't get a copyright strike for any of this stuff, but I'm not taking credit. So let's just watch this one. What are digital price tags? Let me know if you guys can hear it.
People are noticing a change in the grocery aisle.
Sure
New
they
digital
are.
price tags at Walmart now.
Some retailers are ditching paper price tags for digital versions, including two of the nation's largest grocery chains, Walmart and Kroger. The electronic shelf labels letting companies update prices instantly.
It's definitely concerning that they can do it right then and there. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Some customers and experts worry it could lead to surge pricing.
digital price tags can be changed hundreds of times a day.
Lawmakers sent a letter to Kroger expressing concern the labels could be used to squeeze consumers to increase profits. But the company insists it is committed to using this technology responsibly and ethically, and the labels won't be used for surge pricing. Both Kroger and Walmart argue it increases price efficiency and inventory management and frees up employee time from having to change the paper labels by hand. Walmart saying what used to take associates up to 2 days to update now takes just minutes. Walmart's already rolled out the digital tags in more than 400 stores, with plans to reach 2,300 locations by next year. In a recent limited study, researchers found virtually no surge pricing after electronic labels were installed in one U.S. grocery retailer. But some privacy experts remain skeptical.
Like most digital tools, it's about how they're used, not necessarily the technology itself.
And on that question of privacy, some experts are concerned that retailers could be collecting extra data through those tags. They can figure out what you shop for, how.
That doesn't even make any sense, but all right. I think you guys get the gist of what I'm trying to say, right? And notice how they specifically attacked the price changing, right? The instant price changing, because that is what's going to be employed through that. Forget everything else that they say. They're going to say it's not going to happen because that's what they're supposed to tell you. Just like you didn't get a choice in this even happening, you're not going to get a choice in it becoming normal because you're okay with that. At the end of the day, you guys got to realize that these motherfuckers understand that. They understand you're just going to sit there and take it because that's the behavior that is shown on repeat. And until that changes, nothing changes. Those are the facts of life. So you, the individual that asks questions like this, I know it's a roundabout way to answer your question, and I'm really sorry. But, if you want to learn how to analyze things professionally in order to make oodles and noodles, right? You got to learn how to look at the real in between of what's being said. Because that's not what you're going to get from TV. You're not going to get that from data either. I'm telling you, I spent years shorting the fucking market, thinking I was some type of genius because I understood all this shit. Not understanding that I didn't really understand all this shit. That's reality. So you have to know when to analyze things the normal way and when to look at things the other way. And right now, it's time for the other way. Right now, let's just look up something like stable coins. Stable coins in the US. Let's see what we get. Anytime? No. Past week. Past week. This is all you have in the past week. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Let's try this one. Hold on, I messed up on the click in there. Stable coins in US. Nothing. Let's see what we get for why use stable coins. Nothing. So you're being told in many ways that a tsunami is coming. You're told in many ways that's what's happening. And the closer we get to that eventuality, guess what you're seeing on the web? Less information about that specific event than ever. In the past week, and all we're hearing about is freaking stablecoins. So ask yourself, what's really going on? Isn't this interesting? This is how my mind works naturally. And this is why everybody thinks I'm wild and crazy or whatever the fuck they want to think. But they let you know It's not like they're hiding it. Not like they're hiding it. So in the past month, we have decent results. For the past month, this is all right. I'm not mad at the results. This is a good amount of videos. But we also have to keep in mind that, yo, this is the topic. This is still a little bit. This is not a lot. Now, what I would do next in this instance is I would look at what are the players saying. And by the players, I mean the people that rule the financial world today in regards to these so-called stablecoins, because that is the tell. What they say, what they do, because you guys got to remember, we've been talking about a reset, but has that actually taken place? No, that really hasn't taken place in the way that people envisioned it. And that's exactly how it works. Because they get you to think that based on this past events, that things are going to develop similarly or the same, and it never, ever, ever do. Always comes from somewhere else, right? Who was buying Nvidia and AMD when they were worth nothing? I mean, I'm sure I was probably one of the few people, but even I didn't understand, right? Because I don't hold those shares to this day. I don't. I saw them years ago because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Same thing as Hex for most people. Same thing as Bitcoin for most people. Same thing as Ethereum for most people. They're going to figure it out one way or the other. And that's assuming that they want to figure it out. So now let's see if we can find anything regarding what the quote unquote market is saying about it. Let's see. Oh, that's a long video. I don't know if I want to sit through that. Let me see what this is about. Let's see what these clowns are talking about. This is 15 days ago. Why there's so much excitement around a cryptocurrency called stablecoin. Think about this. You know, how significant of an impact is this going to actually have on markets? Yeah, I agree. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This is it. This is the increase. It's begun. Because when you look at the amount of currency floating around, right? If we look at M2, M3, that shit is in the trillions, yo. So I'm not trying to disrespect nobody. I'm just showing my logic and how I look at these things, because that's, you can come to the same, you're gonna come to whatever I think by default. It's not even about me. It's about what they're doing, because that's how you have to look at it. It's not about me. It's about what is going to be the move. Where is capital going to flow to? Where is capital going to flow to? That's really the question, right? And we have to analyze all these aspects in some kind of detail to try to understand what could and couldn't be. I mean, this chart, I've spent hours on this chart alone, because this is telling you exactly where we're at, where we're going, and where we've been, and why things are the way they are. All this ties into that. Now let's look up M3. Okay. Really? All right. Is this just not working like it used to? Oh, I think I just got to search and shit. All right. All right. So M3 is checks, cash, checks, everything. I think it even includes financial assets. But I don't remember the difference between M2 and M3, so I got to look at it real quick because I'm not looking at this shit every day. Oh, this is OECD. This isn't even the Fed. Hold on. This isn't the one I want. Ah, ha 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 ha. I forgot to discontinue this. Okay, well, that kind of answers that question. You see, hold on, man. Fuck. So you see, a simple question can lead to a lot of different things because what are we looking at here? Now we're looking at all these M3 readings, but they're not provided by any central bank. The central bank ones are discontinued. Now, let's just take a look at what the meaning is. They might have it in here or not. Let's see. I'll go back to the announcement. Yep. M3. Okay. Nope. All right. Doesn't appear. So clearly they're lying, right? Because they stopped producing that statistic for a reason. What is the difference between M2 and M3 money supply? Let's let Google do the work for us. Oh, this is good enough. Oh, no, I ain't trying to read, bro. Just give me the answer. Damn. Well, maybe it's in there. Hold on. Blah, blah, blah. Come on, come on, come on. M1 is just typically cash, checks and shit. You know, basic stuff. Base money, yeah. Physical cash coins. M1 is everything physical, right? Plus the reserves at the bank. And then checking accounts, whatever is in there. But you know, when you think about it, should there really be a difference? And yes, because most people use banks, a lot of people do not. That's still a thing. M2 is everything M0, M1 plus savings, small time deposits. I don't remember what that is. Money market funds. But I'm thinking small time deposits is just short term deposits, which is similar to money market funds. Money market funds, we'll look into that next. Because these things are very important to understand. You know, I'm not trying to disrespect homie by going so hard into this question, but this question is the question that answers everything. Because it is about the monetary supply. This is exactly why they're focused on stablecoins. I mean, goddamn. Why they're focused on stablecoins. I don't know. I mean, goddamn. Hold on. I had to mute myself there. This headline says it all. This headline says it all. And I wonder how many entities is this unique to NPR, or are they biting this from somebody else? Because a lot of news organizations just use each other's work. They don't even produce anything original. Circle is the biggest stablecoin issuer, while tethers and facts and reverse, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I guess it is an NPR story specifically. But there you go. They want people to think stablecoins are crypto. I mean, that is everything. That's the answer right there. Because if you know anything, you know that's not the case. Right? That is not the case. Stablecoins could never be crypto. They're not. No, I just can't even formulate a coherent thought without like losing my brain. So, there's a reason I went so hard into this question because it is the critical question. That's all I'm thinking about. Because what is going to be the end result? People, you hear what Walmart and Kroger are saying, right? They're saying it's going to free up employees to do this, that, and the third. It's going to allow more efficiencies and inventory management and blah blah blah, like things that the end user don't give a rat's ass about. That's Walmart's problem, right? Like, you don't care about Walmart's inefficiencies and what their employees are doing and when. Like, you just want to go buy stuff for cheap and hope that don't change, because everything never stays cheap. So if everything never stays cheap, all they do is infinitely increase the money supply. Uh, we know that now they stopped showing institutional funds, which is really the key here. You don't get to see what the big institutions are doing anymore. That's why you can't clearly see the scam. You gotta do all this crap I'm doing. Now, when I was doing this, you could still see the data. It was still obvious in the market. You could still see the impacts. There is, I mean, just the excuse that they use was crazy. How are you going to say that M3 provides no statistical information when M3 is the statistical information that we all care about? Because that's where the scam is happening. Institutional funds. Because who gets those monies that the Fed prints? It's not you. It's not me. It's not even your little local retail bank, right? It's the big boys, the big banks, the JP Morgan Chases, the Wells Fargos, the TDs, and all these banks of the world that are big retail banks, HSBC. I mean, how many times has that bank been caught laundering money? How many times has JP Morgan been caught laundering money? This is what they do. There are no rules, there's just rules for you. And that's how the cookie crumbles. There is no um, fair, just, none of that. It's just people doing what they want to do and getting away with it. That's why we went through all of this, because we're trying to understand what could potentially be the case. That M2 question was very important, because that is the question. Do you not think that the credit debt cycle, where they print massive amounts of M2 in circulation, won't pump crypto? And as we've seen, crypto is used as a psychological tool to get people to ultimately accept this. So while I'm not really answering your question, I kind of am, because the focus on the question should be behind the end result of this increased money supply, and it ain't going to be to pump your bags. That's what I've been saying from the start of this stream, because that's what they want people to think, right? Why not? That's how they got everybody to buy the top in Bitcoin in 2021. Doing it again right now. Off the back of stablecoins. I mean, the shit is hilarious. it's, it's really funny. Actually, they probably got a video. Hold on. Is this a video? They got a video in here? Hold on, man. This shit gonna be crazy. They got a video in here. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I would love to know who the fuck sees stablecoins as groundbreaking, but alright. Oh man. Alright. At the moment, there exists 250 billion units of stablecoins, which are just dollars. a stable coin is either a dollar or it's not. If it's not a dollar, then it's not a stable coin, right? I mean, we all understand this. It's not crypto. It's just supposed to be something that you can exchange for a dollar and get out of the market. At least that was my understanding when it was explained to me by somebody that pretended like they knew more than me because of some stablecoin shit back in 2020. Because I didn't understand the purpose of a stablecoin. I still don't. It's very pointless if you understand the problem at hand, which is lots of dollars. So, yeah, asset classes are definitely going to get pumped, just not yours. The ones that are going to get pumped are here. These US Treasuries, global bonds, private credit, commodities, institutional funds, stocks, not you and your bag. That's the sad fact of the scenario that we're living in right now. But they had to let a few sheep escape the farm in order to ensure that the rest of the sheep stayed still. And it works every time. This is exactly why they can write shit like this. I mean, worth just over 250 billion. That doesn't actually mean what they think it means. And I hope everybody's clearly understanding that because all that means is that they printed 250 billion times the number one. That's all that that means. I really want to make sure people understand that because this is probably going to be the most important stream. You know, this is this is our current day, August 15th, 1971, right here. And everybody's asleep at the wheel today, just like they were then. And, it's cool. It is what it is. But you got to do what you got to do to not succumb to the trap. So you got to make sure you're in the right assets. You got to make sure that you're approaching markets from the correct standpoint. You know, if your goal is to ride this wave, then this is no, well, not here. This is where you go to ride it. We even talked about this a while back. You look at the stock aspect of this tokenization. It hasn't happened at all. But what are you seeing? Increased activity in a major way out of nowhere. And it's going to be like that for a while because it's time. It's time to cause hyperinflation. And everybody's going to suffer the brunt of it regardless of how rich they are. The only people that are not going to suffer are those at the spigot, just like in the system that we have right now. Except for that, in this system is going to be way more widespread because very, very few people are needed in this aspect of society where things can be ran at a touch of a button. And as you guys have been seeing, right, over the past 50 years, all that's happened is that humans have been removed from every facet of life possible, whether it be through automation or whatever have you, improve efficiencies through technology, whatever the case is, right? The goal was always to expend less capital on human labor at a minimum, right? That's always the goal. So, the question really is that Bitcoin, is that Ethereum, are these versions of the coins that we know going to be the ones to pump? That's the question, right? And I think the answer is no. I think that they might pull a sack on one side, or pull a rug on one side to lift the rug on the other. I don't know what it could look like, but I know for a fact that we're near a top to some degree, shape, or form. And right now it's August. It is August 2025. We've been going up, I think, since February nonstop. Let's see. That whole Powell thing, I think that's just drama and theater. I don't really think it matters because at the end of the day, this is still happening. So it's just really small blips in time, right? And the trade for that happened already, right? When the market tanked the other day last week, I don't remember if it was the day of the top or the day before, but the market's been acting funky for a couple of weeks already. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that last time I streamed. And now we see the end result of that, right? Yeah, it's been going up and up and up. Um, but as the story, as the saying goes, it's always stairs up, elevator down, right? I mean, we lost all of this was that all of July in 2 days. Whatever the market did in July, the whole month of July was gone in 2 sessions, and that's just July. And of course, it wasn't a big month or anything, but it's just how it goes. These things happen proportional. If it would have been a bigger July, then it probably would have been the same thing, a bigger drop. Because that's just how those things work. It's just a little funky math and whatnot, Fibonacci's and stuff. All these symmetrical events. The market tries to stay symmetrical, tries to stay symmetrical. But when imbalances happen, right, that's when we see the market do these things right here, right? So that Powell story was really one to just set people off. And for all we know, because the markets are really good at doing this, we could easily just see a move like I talked about earlier, the 21.6, 22.2, just enough to get people to think that we're probably going to close into this and da 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 da, and then just continue back up on higher to come right back to this level to make it seem like maybe we're going to approach the highs again or something, just to fall flat on our face again. I mean, that's entirely probable because that's how tops happen. Tops happen typically over time. They don't typically happen in a V shape because people typically distribute more than they just jump out of a window, right? And that's kind of what selling is in a lot of cases. But I'm talking specifically near the top, not the bottom. At the bottom is when people jump out of windows. And I think you guys have seen that as far as crypto goes. To liquidity stable liquidity pools, issuers like Circle. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's I'm not saying the details, but yeah, right? Because how else are they going to deploy this capital? Right. And then the question after this one is, well, how are they going to connect the real world, i.e., the markets that you know and love, to their new crypto version of markets? Because it's not going to be this one. And that's going to be through using their homies at Tether and Circle. I mean, we've been following, if you've been around crypto long enough, you should be shocked that Tether still exists. And the fact that they do should let you know everything. Right? Kind of like Venezuela and its situation, like the US all of a sudden doesn't want to shut down a dictatorship. That's curious, no? Because all you know from America's history is that that's what it does. But yet all of a sudden, not in Venezuela. You should ask yourself why. Because those are the important questions. Those are the questions that you're the answers that you're actually looking for. Because that's one of the reasons why Tether still exists. And it doesn't even seem related. But if you don't know, how can you know? You're not analyzing, you're not doing any research, you can't know. Right? let's see what happens if what stablecoin is pegged to fiat currencies, particularly, become unstable and be. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's what hyperinflation. That's the point. This is why you see. Hold on. This website kind of sucks. This is why you see one size of the market where it's 25 billion or so, right? It's 25 billion. But then once you include stablecoins, that balloons 10x. So it's 256 plus 25 billion at that point in time once you include stablecoins. All right, 280 billion. And all that is ultimately is just them printing money. It's the same thing. Is they just calling it different? That's all. So, I've been kind of trying to prepare people for this eventuality because it was either this or worse. And I know that sounds crazy, but we really don't know what it's going to look like yet. Wait, you can bet your bottom dollar it's not going to be beneficial to you, and that is the crux of everything. Because if it's beneficial to you, then it ain't beneficial to them, right? So it looks like the dollar's okay. Oh, we might be in an uptrend, but maybe we're just gonna get something like this. That's highly likely because the system is being set up for that. How much dollars, what are you buying when you're swapping the same thing out for the same thing in a different form? Are you actually buying anything? I don't think so. So, when we go back to this piece, they say that Citigroup projects the total amount to balloon from 250 to 200, or I'm sorry, 250 billion to 4 trillion by 2030. Think about that. Think about that. Think about it. It's very important. There is nothing positive that's about to happen for your pocket, unfortunately, as far as them being in control is concerned. Because, yes, this hasn't started yet, but it's gonna. Let's see. I believe they're going to create a reason, yes, to increase the money supply, of course, and increase stables. That's right. So they can chase short-term bonds. Now, yes, the 10-year loan is already in bullish territory going back to 2024. Last time I bought them was recently in December 2024. At least at, favorable prices near the volatility level stop. But then recently, I think it might have been, April, bottom towards the end of the month. And it's been up since. 2 points for the 10-year. Now, we're just talking the 10-year. Now, the 30-year, right? These instruments are more sensitive to interest rate risk because they're at the long end of the curve. Now, what this gentleman is talking about is the short end, right? So if we come down to let's see, 2-year, that thing been ripping. And we're just talking about the 2-year. This never works, but let's see what we get. Yeah, same deal. This is a whole difference of 1.25 points That's huge money in this specific market. Huge. People have definitely retired from 2024 to now just off this move. Definitely. If they got size and stuff like that, oh yeah, they not looking back because it's like $40 a tick or a point for this thing. Uh, so yeah, big money. All right, already at hour and a half. I gave you guys my logic as to how we're gonna end up here because you can already see it, right, in rates that this is where capital is gonna flow because that is collateral. We talked about this before. What's considered high quality collateral, asset classes, assets versus liabilities. That's everything. That's everything because the accounting is how they foster and hide the lies. And if you don't know anything about the accounting, you're not going to know that. But this is why you can see them definitely taking that action of just buying up short-term treasuries to supplement the stablecoin market. Because when you look at, let's see if you can, let me get rid of corporate bonds, institutional active funds, private credit, which is the actual biggest one. And we're just going to leave commodity. We're going to get rid of commodities and actively managed strategies. And we're just going to leave the base elements of the market on the screen. That's all we're going to do. Let's see. I can't expand this. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit at least. Yeah. So, long story short, as the gentleman was saying, we're talking about a potential capital flow of 250 billion as it stands now into U.S. Treasury debt and probably non-U.S. government debt, depending on the quality, which will then ultimately find its way into the stocks, tokenized versions of stocks. That is probably what's going to happen, and they're probably going to have some type of swap program that'll allow these guys to swap, real assets into fake shit, into the digital version of whatever. Because swaps are a thing. So, that is the stream right there. That is the most important aspect of what's happening in society right now, financially speaking. Yeah, there's really nothing else that needs to be said. Excuse me. That can really improve upon this fact because that M2 question really lined it up perfectly. So sorry for going all in on that one question, but that question was the question. Now let's see. We got option. Yeah, and that's the thing. If because you have to have a way to structure the market. This is the thing about short-term trading that's very difficult for people. It was difficult for me anyway. You got to figure out how to structure the market so that you understand when the market is, because indicators are cool, but indicators miss a lot of information that's important, and you have to figure out with your eyes. So you got to be very careful about how you ride on something being A, B, C, or D. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't really rely on absolutes in the market unless they're actively happening and engaged, because that's how we can state an average, right, and lean on that average to a certain extent. But then that's where statistics comes into play, where we then understand the movement of that thing, that average, and try to have an understanding of, is this an extreme move or not, right? That's what statistics is for, and that is beneficial to you to study that. I'm working on something. I really don't want to talk too much about it because it really revolves around that, and the volatility levels and the marketvolatility.org and all of that is all revolving around that, given the market structure, not just day to day, but at least 30 days out, because you can. You can. It's just a different way of trading. It's not how people typically trade, but it's how I trade. So I'm just working on some. We'll see if it happens or not. because the way things are going now, there's really no telling what next week is going to hold, let alone, you know, next month. Times are interesting right now, to say the least. Let's see. My idea is that Hex about 2026 as starts to run, believing. Yeah, this is the thing. Hex and all the asset classes that we know in the RH universe, right? They stand alone. They're not tied in to the scam world. This is why people had to come in early on and get involved so that they can have supply to sell, right? Because you have to understand, um, there's a reason the chart looks like it does. There's a reason, the Twitter of Hex is so active. And I've gone into this before. You either want to understand and respect the facts of how things play out, or you just want to let people tell you how to view things. And a lot of people choose that. They don't like my method of relying on themselves. They want the method of being told. And I don't operate that way, so it's all good. But if you're not in the right asset classes moving forward, I've been talking about this since 2020. You're gonna pay the price. That's a fact. Nah, you're not retarded. Your thesis is spot on. That's exactly why I had to break it down, because you see a lot of things that most people they don't see yet, or maybe they don't want to see, or maybe they're not doing the work to see it. But it's there. That plumbing is everything, because that plumbing is exactly what drives markets. That's how I ended up realizing that I was a dumbass in my early years. So, that's the way it goes, because you really do have to break these things down. At the end of the day, all markets are is people buying and selling. But look at all the things we got to talk about just to get to an understanding of where capital could flow, because this scenario is very complicated. We're talking about this market replacing this one. I mean, that's crazy. I don't think people really understand the severity of the implications here. We're talking about 4 trillion. This is 10% approximately of the US debt as it stands. So it's not really much of a hop, skip, and a jump to presume that they're not afraid to get the 40 trillion. Because again, it's all accounting. And you're welcome. It's crazy. Yep. Yep. New token market for the cheap buy-in. People left out in the cold. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, I mean, $30 an hour is not money in 2025. That's a meal in most places. In New York, that's a meal in most places. So I mean, this is in 2025. Like you're not eating for $20 in a lot of places, and that's crazy. It's real crazy. Yeah, I don't think people understand that. Yeah, definitely not crypto. Definitely not crypto. Yeah, man. You just got to really be in the right market, and that's the key. The key is not being in the Pepes and the whatnots. They're not going to get any love. This time around, they're not going to get any love. That's why they had to get people to think meme coins, meme coins, meme coins. People are addicted to meme coins. And guess what's not going to rip? Guess what's not going to rip? That's right. Yep. I'm clearly way behind on the comments, so I'm sorry. About 45 minutes behind. Damn. All right. But this is going to be where I'm going to wrap it up. So if you guys got questions, get them in the chat. I'm gonna go through them, and then we're going to wrap it up. But it's really crazy. It's phenomenally astounding what we're seeing happening in real time. And it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. I hate it. No, no disrespect, yo. Straight up. No disrespect. I just really wanted to break it down because that's the issue. That tokenization bit is what it's all about. Thank you, Tam Tam. I appreciate it. This here, M2, M3, that's what it's all about. That's why they got rid of M3 in 2006. They knew this was coming. This is all planned out. This is not a secret. They're not surprised. They don't make mistakes. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They're educated. They know exactly what they're doing. Now, this is a funny ass question. Yo, I'm gonna tell you what. It's not a bad idea. Do I see MicroStrategy issue stablecoin pegged to $100? And maybe not to $100, but it's gonna be pegged, and it's gonna be a claim pegged, because if you guys have been paying attention, no stablecoin is ever stable, and there's just nothing positive about this at all. All right, nothing. And yo, you know what? I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But damn, I just don't see it because, as was so eloquently put in the chat, they've been at it for 112 years. You think they're gonna just stop now? I don't think so. Don't think so. Yeah, they don't know this. Mm. All right, so here's something funny. I work for the banking system specifically. I won't say in what aspect or anything like that, but I work for the banking system specifically because I already knew it was coming, so I decided to go there. Anyway, you know, the people that work at this place don't fucking know that these banks are broken, have no money. And the ones that do don't recognize that that's what it is. They just think that the system functions that way, and that's just what that is. And this is why, because they don't realize that. You know, when you're taught something from a book and you think that that's the way it works, quote unquote, oh, right? That's what it is. And good thing you mentioned real estate. They already have a myriad of ways of digitizing deeds, mortgages, you know, all these documents, titles that are, well, maybe not titles because I don't see that one changing, but all these documents that are relevant to that system and that process, they're already able to digitize all of this. And if it's not digitized in a lot of places, it's digitized. I mean, New York has been digitized since a long time ago. Since I can remember, since I've been involved in this business, it's been digitized. So, yo, who has I think Vitalik is trying to work on one with his gay ass, and the other homo, Altman. Yeah, they both working on KYC coins, and they not gonna seem like that's what they are, but that's what they are. That's what they are. All right, so I see there's no more questions in the chat. Can you even imagine the amount of wealth you will have by staking honey? Yo, that's, yeah. People gonna learn the hard way, and I'm gonna be smiling. And that's just on one chain. What if it's on two? Ooh, boy. Yes, this is what the moral of the story is, because it's gonna lead to things like this, which, you know, who even knows what's in there? Because nobody reads them. But what we do know at the end of the day is that the odds of this going higher are there. The odds of it going lower are also there. So what does it mean? It means you got to be really, really careful, because there's no telling what trick is going to be pulled on you. And that's the scary part. Because how can you see a knife in the back coming your way? You typically can't. And we'll leave it right there. You guys stay educated, stay motivated. Don't stay dumb. Don't do yourself any disservice by choosing to be ignorant. This is why we're here today. Y'all be easy. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.